Hi, 8th grade. This is your visual content specialist, Mrs. C. Today we're going to be using a strategy called Cornell Notes. This strategy is going to help us organize what we are learning when using a resource such as a video or a text, and it is also going to help us make connections between what we know and what we are learning. When using the Cornell Notes strategy, you'll be able to support your visual processing. In other words, you will be able to understand what it is that you're reading or watching. You'll be able to develop background knowledge and build connections on 8th grade level topics in Passport to Social Studies. So what are Cornell Notes? Cornell Notes are a note-taking strategy that helps us organize what we see and read in different resources. This strategy also allows us to understand and make connections between different ideas. In order to use Cornell Notes effectively, you will have to 1. Read or watch your resource carefully and in parts. 2. Identify important information. And 3. Write down details and key terms followed by a summary of the resource. So let's take a look at what this strategy would look like when we are actually using it. The first thing you want to do is prepare your paper in your notebook or your journal for your class and write down the date. The date is very important because it allows you to go back and look for specific notes when you need them. You also need the title of the resource or maybe even a guiding question such as an essential question for the unit or the guiding question, a question that's going to help you or guide you to only write down the information that you need, relevant information. Then you want to divide your paper up into 3 sections. You're making a sort of T-chart, but you're leaving a small space on the left for keywords and questions. The larger space on the right you will use for your quick notes, abbreviations, and key thoughts and takeaways from the resource that you're using. At the bottom, this section, you want to leave 3 or 4 lines empty, so that way when you're done with taking your notes and your vocabulary words and creating your questions, you can provide yourself with a summary about what the resource was about or what the topic that you were studying is about. On the right, we see another version of Cornell Notes, but they're very similar. Again, questions and key terms or vocabulary, the larger part for our notes, the bottom part for our summary. The only difference is this says title, this says essential question. It's up to you or your instructor to provide you with the title or the question that you're going to be guided by when using a resource. One great opportunity that you have to apply the Cornell Notes strategy is Unit 1, Days 1 and 2 of Passport to Social Studies, where we're asked to analyze all these different resources and then indicate very specific pieces of information here, depending on the resource that we use. We are asked with examining the major issues and events that led to the Civil War. But in order to get to answer that big question, we need to analyze and understand these resources. So in Unit 1, Days 1 and 2, titled A Nation Divided, we're going to use one of these resources, the Kansas-Nebraska Act, a portion of it, to show you what this looks like when we're actually using the Cornell Notes strategy. So again, you can write down a title of the topic or the essential question of the unit, or you can create your own guiding question, which is the question that's going to help you just find the most important information about your resource. So here I'm going to create my guiding question. Since my resource is called the Kansas-Nebraska Act, my question is, what was the Kansas-Nebraska Act? And this question is going to remind me what it is that I'm looking for, what kind of information it is that I'm actually looking for. So I'm not jotting down like information that doesn't connect to my topic, for example. So let's take a look at the resource. This is the lesson, days 1 through 2 in Unit 1. And I'm going to click the Kansas-Nebraska Act, and it's going to take me to this resource over here. Now the first thing we want to do, remember, is read our resource in parts. That way we're giving ourselves time to understand what it is that we're reading. So let's only read this first section here and see what we get from it. It says, the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854 may have been the single most significant event leading to the Civil War. That's really important information. It's basically telling me that this law is one of the most important things that led to the Civil War. By the early 1850s, settlers and entrepreneurs wanted to move into the area now known as Nebraska. However, until the area was organized as a territory, settlers would not move there because they could not legally hold a claim on the land. The southern states' representatives in Congress were in no hurry to permit a Nebraska territory because the land lay north of the 36° 30' parallel, where slavery had been outlawed by the Missouri Compromise of 1820. Just when things between the North and South were in an uneasy balance, Kansas and Nebraska opened fresh wounds. So I'm going to look at any key terms. I see the term Civil War. I see the term territory. I see slavery. And these are all terms that I want to indicate on my key terms column right here. So Civil War, slavery, and over here I'm going to start taking notes such as the Kansas-Nebraska Act was one of the main events or laws that led to the Civil War. And then as I keep reading the resource in parts, I'm going to continue writing down important bits of information here so that I have all the information I need from that one resource. Now, once I finish reading my resource, I'm going to create a summary. Basically, what is this resource all about, or what understanding did I gain from using this resource? And I can look at my essential question if I have one, or my guiding question, to maybe answer it after I looked at the resource completely. So my guiding question is, what was the Kansas-Nebraska Act? The Kansas-Nebraska Act was a law that led to the Civil War. And that's all the information I have so far because I only read a portion of it, just to give you guys an example of how to use the Cornell Notes strategy. But by the end of your resource, your Cornell Notes page will look something like this. So remember, in order to use Cornell Notes effectively, 1, you need to read or watch your resource carefully and in parts. You're reading it or watching it in parts because you want to allow yourself time to understand what it is that you're looking at. 2, we want to identify important information such as who, what, when, where, why, and how. So remember to use the 5 W's, who, what, when, where, why, and an H, how. to ensure that you are writing down the most relevant information that connects to the topic and resource. And 3, you want to write down details and key terms followed by a summary of the resource. So basically, you're asking yourself, what was this resource all about?